It was a Sunday afternoon.
I was working a day shift. It was snowing, but not terribly hard.
Shortly before 7 a.m., I responded to a two-vehicle crash.
It was a call for a car that was on fire on I-35.
I think I was on the job for maybe about 6 months at the time. I had stopped for a semi-truck that was hauling a big four-wheel drive tractor.
My partner and I were escorting the patient to a waiting ambulance when I heard a noise, and all three of us were struck from behind.
Waiting for a tow truck to respond, and as I sat there, I noticed in my rearview mirror that there was a crash that had happened behind me. I waited for an opening in traffic. I backed up on I-35 and got behind the two vehicles that were involved in the crash. Got out of my squad and just walked up there like I did hundreds of other times, asked if everybody was okay, and asked what had happened. Within seconds of standing and talking to these two drivers, the younger of the two gentlemen said, "Look out."
10-4, the other guy, he's got a pretty good head injury, and I can't really get up.
With the advent of all the electronic devices, we're seeing people that are multitasking when they're driving and not having 100% concentration.
My partner was up at righting the crash and the ambulance was on scene. There were injuries. I had rolled up on the crash, realized that we weren't in a very optimal place to be. It was at the top of the hill crest. It was just slightly around a curve. So I went to the shoulder to back up into the straightaway so that people could see where I was at and that I was blocking the lane for at least half mile. I watched traffic in my mirror for a couple of minutes to make sure that people were able to see me, and I saw that, way back, clear down by the end or the bottom of the bridge of Dowling, they were moving over, so I knew people were able to see me where I was at. And then I started typing a message to the person that was righting the crash, and that's when all of a sudden I got hit.
Unfortunately, a lot of drivers tend to just look at their hood ornament as they're driving down the road, and they may not be aware of how fast it is.
We get a page for a car fire on the interstate. And so I got up, got dressed, and ran out the door, told my wife, I love you, I'll see you later, and got up to the hall. We loaded up in our truck like usual and got out there. We got the car fire put out. It was when I was unhooking the hose from the driver's side of the truck that a car lost control and pinned me up against the truck.
You gotta expect the unexpected, and anything can happen again at any moment. Again, don't take anything for granted.
We pulled up on the freeway behind the scene and just tried to watch traffic and have some lights on so other people knew that there was something coming up. We discussed it and told him to go up there and just make sure things were done right. Shortly after that, there was a rather loud crash. We had a Caprice got rear-ended by a Ford F-150, so he got pushed into the cars that we had. Kim got stopped by the tires, and his feet got stuck there, and he was flung back and flung forward, and all that momentum just burst his aorta, and that was how that one ended.
You're out in this unsafe location, or you're out on the side of the freeway longer than necessary. You have to balance between constantly watching and also getting done what needs to be done.
One of my daughters was sitting out on the rocks crying. And so he goes up to her and he goes, "Avery, what's wrong?" And she's like, "I just want my dad home from the hospital." And it's something like that that really makes you realize the effect has on your family.
I drive past that spot every day, and you think, your life changed there.
Vehicles from a couple of thousand pounds all the way up to tens of thousands of pounds, 60, 70, 75 miles an hour. That's a very permanent end to your life if you're struck directly by them.
You're there because somebody is having a bad day, something bad happened. Your goal is to try to make that thing better, not make it worse.
It's our job not only to get responders to where they need to go, but to keep them safe. We do a lot of what I call investigative work too. When officers en route, we check who, what, when, where, and why. The first thing we need to verify is where a person is. We can't help anyone unless we know where the incident is taking place. And then we have a standard set of questions. Who's involved? What's going on?
We want everybody to go home at the end of the night. So whatever you have to do to get there, you have to do. Position your car the right way on a traffic stop.
When you're on scene, it's very important that if you see something that's not right, you make it right. If you neglect anything that's not right, it leads to someone getting injured.
I know our first drivers, one of their priorities is trying to keep the road moving, try to keep the lanes clear and try to keep the roadway flowing as much as possible.
And that's that quick clearance that we talk about, you know what, if we can move things or you know, if this thing was in fact just a stall, an overheat, whatever the case might be.
If you can move an incident off the roadway, then do it. By moving an incident completely off the roadway, you're not distracting the motoring public by sitting on the shoulder with lights on.
The state economy, your local economy, depends on reliable transportation. You need to keep traffic moving as much as it's practical to do so, as much as you can, balancing the safety of your seeing. In some cases, it's not always going to be possible to do it, but when you can, try to keep traffic moving if it's possible. And if you need to close the road, try to get the road back open again as soon as it's practical to do it.
If there's something that changes at the scene regarding the flow of traffic, everybody that's on scene has to be aware of that. You can't open a lane of traffic to get additional traffic moving and not notify everybody that's working on the scene. A responder that's focused on the task at hand may step back into traffic because they're not paying attention to the traffic.
Emergency responders do get complacent. They get a tunnel vision, they're there to do a job. You've got to take off those tunnel vision glasses and realize there's a much bigger picture out there because there's always traffic coming through your scene and you have to be aware of that.
It's not just the motoring public we have to worry about. Complacency will kill us. It will kill you, it can kill your partners, so avoid it.
Rural areas, it's more the unexpectedness of it because people aren't expecting stop traffic. And the roads may be a two-lane highway and you have curves and you have hills and the last thing you're expecting is to come over a hill and have stop traffic. Think about what it is that's around you. Think about how the traffic is reacting to you as they come up. How far back can they see you from? Don't just tunnel in on the first crash, at the thing that you're there for. Think about what's going in, what's happening around you.
Responders have a very limited opportunity to train together. The opportunity to debrief after a very traumatic scene or a very large scene can assist in future training.
The variable is still going to be the traffic coming at you. They have no awareness of what's going on. They have no, they are just driving wherever they're driving. They're going to work, they're going to school. They have no expectation that something unusual is about to happen. So you need to be the one to always be thinking about what's going to happen, about what the potentials are.
Responders are not exempt. We have to remember that. When responding to any call, responders are not exempt from the law. They have to drive with a due regard for the safety of people using the streets.
You need to establish procedures on traveling to the scene because the traffic laws still prevail. Even though you have lights and siren, yes, you can proceed cautiously through an intersection or through a red light, but there's always a potential that somebody didn't catch that. Fire service has a new everyone goes home program, stop at stop signs, stop at red lights, and there are even some law enforcement agencies and some EMS agencies that I've seen that have adopted those policies as well. Communication is a very important piece, and the communication needs to start before incidents happen. Even if you've butted heads with other agencies in the past, you got to push the egos aside. You got to push, this is the way we've always done it, aside. You've got to push, this is how our agency does it. Everybody's got to learn to work together. We talk about unified command in the instance where nobody is specifically in charge. Everybody's in charge of their own specific duties at the time, but through that coordination, cooperation, and communication, you have this unified command process where everybody has a piece of the puzzle, everybody works together in a coordinated fashion to communicate with each other and let them know what the other is doing, so you can work together and do it more efficiently and do it more effectively. When it comes to parking vehicles, one of the most important things that really needs to be stressed is the topography. Is there a curve? Is the incident right after a curve? Is the incident right beyond a hill? And as a result, if you have that, the traveling public, once they go around that curve, they don't know something's going on unless you're telling them something's going on.
If it's on a curve, you might park it just a little bit different. On a hill, you might park it back a little bit farther, just so that people coming over the hill can see.
They need to take in their surroundings to see what's going on, the lay of the road, the curves, the hills, especially today, the traffic conditions, the road conditions, where it helps to really know your area.
Anytime you're in the vehicle, whether responding to a crash or just sitting in the vehicle at a scene, it's extremely important to put your seatbelt on. That seatbelt is going to hold you in that seat. If that vehicle gets struck, you're going to be moving around inside that vehicle along with all the other objects in the vehicle.
Well, some of the things that people get complacent about are, cones and road flares. Safety vests are a big one.
You're given safety protective equipment for a reason. Wear it. If it's appropriate, it needs to be on.
The only variable that you actually can control is whether you're taking advantage of all of the safety equipment and the best practices that you have to protect yourself. And that means wearing a vest, it means how you park, it means advanced warning, it means taking advantage of everything you can to try to shift the odds in your favor.
You've got to get into the habit of wearing your personal protective equipment, and everybody's got the procedures down on what safety equipment to use each and every time. It's got to be, no matter how big a call, no matter how small of a call, everybody's got to get into the good habits. Once a call is dispatched, every emergency responder is going to be thinking of different things on the way there. They're going to be listening to the information, taking that in. Do they have one victim, two victims? Is it potentially blocking? Weather conditions, the topography, whether it's a curve, whether it's a hill. Is it on a freeway? Is it rush hour?
Can you move it to a safer location? Can you move it to a shoulder? Can you move it off the highway? And that's going to be a better outcome for everyone. You can remove the threat of traffic by moving the incident itself.
After arrival, it's important to establish control of your scene, making sure traffic is directed safely around the scene.
One of the analogies I like to use about traffic is that it's like flowing water. It can be fast, it can be slow, it can be a raging river or a small stream. One of the main things is it's always going to keep coming. So if you just block it, if you just dam it, it's going to go places that you may not want it to go. If you can think about it when you respond, that not only do I have to deal with this incident that I'm at, that I also need to think about what that flow of traffic is behind me and set up in a way that minimizes the chances of additional problems happening.
The first vehicle on scene may need to establish an initial block.
Depending on where the accident is, if it's in the lane, we'll take that lane, particular lane, and we'll turn on all the lights. So basically we become that barrier between the crash and then the traveling public.
If you're the first one on scene, put your emergency vehicle between the incoming traffic and where you're going to be on foot. The problem with most emergency lights is that it's all about saying, here I am, here I am, here I am, but it doesn't give any instruction.
You want to taper people off into a different direction. You're using cones, you're using flares to establish that taper, where it's spread out, just almost like follow the yellow brick road. This is the direction that we want you to go.
In order to set up an effective taper, use traffic cones or flares. Space them apart at approximately 10 pace intervals, directing traffic away from and around the scene.
Remember that cones and flares are not invisible force fields. They're a way to communicate with traffic, a way to tell them to move over and judge their rate of closure as they're coming in.
A lot of the traveling public believes that when you tell them to slow down means going from 60 to 58. We don't want them to go that fast. We want them to get down in the 20s and 30s when they pass through our scene.
Advanced warning is something to give the incoming traffic that first clue, hey, something's about to happen, so that they start paying attention. It can be the signs, it can be as simple as having a squad, somebody with flashing lights on the shoulder before the scene. So from a traffic control perspective, you want to give the incoming traffic enough time and space that they can react safely. 5, 10, 15 seconds before the traffic hits the scene. It's always on the shoulder. Advanced warning needs to be on the shoulder, it's not on the lane.
Every responder, if they're looking for a crash and it's just over the peak of a hill or just beyond a curve, you need to make sure that you get some advance warning and some signage before that curve, before that hill, ASAP. You're looking for it and you had to slam on your brakes. The traveling public doesn't have any idea that there's something beyond that hill, there's something beyond that curve. Advance warning is extremely important, and that's going to be the last vehicle leaving the scene, because you don't want to pull out the advance warning before the incident's completed. Otherwise, people don't know that something's going on up ahead.
First responders can be flaggers. Flagging can be an effective tool on 2-lane roadways, and when one side of the road is blocked and the only option is to allow traffic to come through in groups, you have a flagger at each end of the incident. The first flagger stops all of the traffic, while the second flagger at the other end allows the traffic to pass through. Both of the flaggers need to be in communication with each other. Make sure you still have advanced warning set up ahead of time too. Remember that flagger is going to be in one of the most vulnerable spots. Use the resources that you have. In the metro, we have a lot of options. We have the overhead signboards, we have the first trucks. Greater Minnesota, you're not going to have access to that. Carry the cones, carry the flares. How you use these tools can be very effective. So the first one on scene, number one, park behind the incident. Put something between yourself and the incoming traffic. Be sure you call in to your dispatch and let them know, and that you let your fellow responders know exactly where it is that you are and what the impact is. If you're blocking a lane, if you're not, if you're on the shoulder, make sure everybody's on the same page as far as where it is. Let your other responders know if you want them to park somewhere. Give them instructions on where it is that you want them to go. Next step, setting up the taper as a way to direct traffic where you want them to be. And then marking out the work area. Try to make it as clear as possible so the traffic knows where to go. Set up your advance warning to give them a clue something's about to happen. And then adjust, monitor and adjust as necessary. So the components, so the basic concepts, so advanced warning, this is the first clue to traffic that something is about to happen. Transition area, this is where you're moving people from where they want to be to where you want them to be. Buffer space is an open area between your cones and your actual equipment. This is an area so that if somebody does come into your scene and isn't paying attention and locks up their brakes, all they're doing is hitting cones. Shadow vehicle, something big and heavy enough to stop a high-speed vehicle from coming into the scene. More space after that, because if a fire truck gets hit by a semi, it's going to move. So you need to have a little bit more space in there, so if it does move, it's not hitting anybody. And then you've got your work area where the actual crash is. This is where the pedestrians are. And then staging area, it could be the ambulance, could be tow trucks, farther enough downstream.
All responders have to communicate, coordinate, and cooperate when they're on scenes. Dispatchers play a very important piece of communication. First, they let us know what information they have. They continue to update that information. We could probably all do a better job of giving more information to the dispatchers. Dispatchers are typically trained to repeat what they hear. So maybe the incoming agency didn't hear the chief on scene provide some information about what they had. The dispatcher plays an important role there because they can then repeat that information.
If there's something that changes at the scene, face-to-face communication is extremely important. Because traffic is like flowing water, it's important to remember that when you are going to clear a scene, it's much like a faucet. You want to open that faucet slowly. You can't open a lane of traffic to get additional traffic moving and not notify everybody that's working on the scene.
Emergency responders, when they show up on scene, they need to do what they need to do to keep themselves safe, to keep other responders safe, and also keep the people that they're there to help safe. It doesn't matter what discipline it is, what agency it is, you want everybody to have a round-trip ticket.
Be prepared for anything to happen. The Lowry Hill Tunnel is an area in the metro that is notorious for anything and everything that happens. I was traveling eastbound Interstate 94 coming through the tunnel and heard a loud, what sounded like an explosion, and suddenly saw a semi coming at my squad car on its side, and behind the semi was a wave of milk. It was a tanker truck that had rolled over. First responders are often faced with unpredictable situations. The training that first responders go through provides them with the tools to respond safely and effectively. Bridge decks are hazards for everyone that responds. There's no avenue of escape on a bridge deck.
Crash on the river bridge. Imagine you are standing just in front of this and you look up and you see a car coming at you. What are your choices? Probably jump over the wall. And if this crash, instead of being in the left lane, this crash was in the right lane, would jumping over the wall be a good idea? You have to be aware of the entire environment. You have to be aware of the things that are going on around you.
It's very important to everybody to park on the same side.
You're not competing with different views from the traffic. They're not having to scan back and forth to keep track of everything.
Most of the concepts are the same between Minnesota rural areas versus metro areas, but there might be some procedural differences. In the rural areas, firefighters may respond directly to the scene in their personal vehicles.
If you're responding in personal vehicles, best advice would be to park past the scene and as far off to the shoulder as you can.
We live in Minnesota, and we have ice, we have snow, we have rain.
Road conditions cause the first crash, can cause another one. If the first guy got there, so can somebody else.
When it comes to communication, that dispatcher becomes a very critical piece in that information for updates. Are the roads icy? Are there some power lines nearby?
As a dispatcher, I think as far as making sure that the responders are safe, we make sure that there aren't any hazmat chemicals or anything of that nature.
The cable barriers are very effective from preventing crossover crashes. However, they are under high tension, so it's important to get some information from MnDOT if you have cable barriers in your area. You have to be very aware of making sure you don't have too many lights, depending on where your incident is, because you might create a gawker scene.
Especially at night, you need to have enough emergency lighting so that people can see you from a distance. But at a certain point, it just becomes overwhelming. It's not just about having a ton of blinky lights, it's about giving some sort of instruction to people.
The roadway is extremely dangerous anytime there's traffic, anytime there's potential for traffic to come through, even in a parking lot. You can't predict what people are going to do. You can't control what other people are going to do. You can control your actions. You can do as much as you can to keep yourself safe, but it just takes that one instance and you won't be able to ever take it back.
Going back early in my career, standing there thinking that traffic was seeing me, and you hear the tires screeching, and that car is out of control because they were looking at something else and didn't notice you until it was almost too late.
It's not if you're going to get hit, it's when you're going to get hit.
You know, it goes to show that no matter how safe you have a scene set up, how, you know, if you're doing everything right, something can go wrong.
Work with your other partners in the public safety arena, your EMS, your fire, and your law enforcement. Collaborate and work together.
To make sure that everybody does go home at the end of the day. And it doesn't matter whether they're firefighters on my department, firefighters on somebody else's department, whether it's law enforcement or EMS or tow operators.
Biggest purpose out there is to get everybody home. And most of all, the patients that we're there for. Don't forget about each other when this kind of stuff happens. You really need to heal together.
Just about every emergency responder out there wants to make sure that everybody goes home, not just the responders, but also the traveling public.
Keep your eyes open. Remember, you need to come home. Bring everybody home that goes out.